Hello and welcome to Security Scan. I'm Vishal Dahiya, and this week we will talk about how to tackle the drone threat. Now, from the assassination attempt on Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in August last year to attack on oil facilities in Saudi Arabia and dropping of arms and ammunition in Punjab, there is one common element in all these security scares, that is the use of drones. Now, drones are making a steady progress in both military and civil applications, and now these versatile multi-role platforms have become a cause of concern for the security agencies around the globe. In the first annual press conference as the new Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal R.K.S. Bhattauria also referred to this threat, saying steps have been taken to tackle the challenge of airspace violation by small drones. So how are security agencies world over trying to find a solution to the threat posed by drones? For more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests in the studio today. Let me first introduce the guests, beginning with Retired Major General Ravi Arora, the Chief Editor of Indian Military Review. We also have with us Retired Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, the Additional Director General of Center for Air Power Studies. And we have with us Mr. Ajay Banerjee, the Defense Correspondent from the Tribune. So let's begin. And in the beginning, let's try and break it down for our viewers and put it in context as well. General Arora, I'll begin with you to try and explain as to how drones have evolved over the years, and they become, or rather, all set to become an essential part for both civil and military purposes.
Well, unmanned flight as such is as old, almost as old as manned flight. Few years after manned flight was undertaken in the early 20th century, someone developed unmanned flight, but it was not used as a weaponized platform. Then over the years, in the Second World War, you could say some of the rockets were used as unmanned weapons, but they lacked guidance, they lacked communication, they lacked navigation, they lacked terminal guidance. So they were just like, free fall bombs, although some of them rocket assisted. But the use of drones for intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, as well as a weapon for carrying missiles and guided bombs took place, really speaking, after the 9/11 attack, when the Americans started using armed drones to target terrorists in Afghanistan and in Iraq. So since then, although the Americans had, exclusive use of this technology, controlling drone flights right from America and directing them against targets in Afghanistan, after that it has proliferated. This technology has proliferated in the sense that China today is exporting en masse these what we call unmanned combat aircraft, especially to the Middle East. And amongst the top 10 armed drones of the world, the Chinese have developed two of them, the CH-5 Rainbow and the Wing Loong 2. Similarly, the Russians, the Israelis, the Turks, and many other countries have got world-class armed drones, which are in the top 10 list.
Okay.
But the use of smaller drones, call them drones, call them remotely piloted aircraft, call them unmanned aerial vehicles, unmanned aerial systems, whatever you may, popularly now called drones, they have now been used this year, and this year has been a turning point when the Yemeni Houthi rebels used drones. They claimed to have used them, although the Americans and the Saudis believe that Iran was behind them, that they used cruise missiles as well as armed drones to target the Saudi Arabia's oil facilities at two locations on the 14th of September. And then from 6th of September to 16th of September, we had at least 10 incidents of Pakistanis using drones to send AK-47s, pistols, grenades, satellite phones, mobile phones, ammunition, etc. to the Khalistanis on our side of the border, using them as delivery vehicles. So this has now become a fact. It's a new revolution in military affairs. We have got to not only live with it, we have to counter it, and we have to also use it as a weapon of war.
Okay.
And last but not the least, the threat to airlines at airfields and airports around the world is now an existential threat. It has happened in India. I can give you more figures because I have learned them from the CISF. It's a big threat to airlines at airports today.
Well, yes, definitely. And there have been incidents worldwide where flights have been cancelled because, unmanned aerial vehicles were spotted or drones were spotted in the vicinity. Let me bring in AVM Bahadur here. This is a versatile platform, what we call drone, and it has a lot of uses as a multi-role platform. So how do you look at the way this particular platform has evolved over the years and the kind of uses now we're talking about the misuse as well?
One has to be clear. When you're talking of unmanned vehicles, aerial vehicles especially, the first use of an armed unmanned vehicle was a balloon in the 1800s, 1840, when it was used against Venice, where the hot air balloon, there was some bombs laid and it was just left, hoping that the wind would carry it. What happened was half of them came back and struck who had launched them. So the history of use of unmanned vehicles is that old. It's not just beginning of the century, last century. It's 18th century, 19th century. So now the point at issue is, from there, we've talked of the aerial vehicles. Let's not forget the word drone encompasses underwater vehicles also. So there are underwater drones too, which are a big threat to shipping, but that possibly requires another program. So sticking to the air part, so that has developed. The armed drones actually were the V1s, the V2 bombs used in World War II, as also when you consider the fact that the real usage of drones as we now see happened in the Bekaa Valley Israeli-Syrian offensive, when the Israelis used the drones to illuminate the radars of the other side and got their frequencies and attacked them.
Okay.
So that is where the drones were first used and really caught the imagination of people who are interested in aviation, of the use of how drones can be used in various ways. So one was to get the radars painting, the other one was to get the frequency, and that's where the ratio was massive, some 80:1 in that particular war. From there, yes, it came into our bedrooms and drawing rooms during the Gulf War, much before 9/11 in 1991, and that's where then it started off. The problem is that the proliferation of drones, it's actually, I call it an insane proliferation. You and I can just go on the Amazon or eBay and buy a drone. And if our thinking is a little warped, inimical to anybody, we can use that as a weapon. We still hear, and it's happened in the last 2-3 decades too, of balloons coming across from Pakistan side, and they say there is pamphlets. There was something that came, we don't know, we just found the balloon. But the point is that unmanned vehicle has created a problem for you possibly. And hence, the issue that comes up is, one, is it a threat? Absolutely it's a threat. Second, what do we do about it? The biggest problem is to detect it in time.
Okay.
How to detect it is the other issue. It is not as big as an aircraft. It can be a very small thing. And hence the radars and electronic means have their limitations. We can start looking at aural means, that is the sound that it produces. But the point is that the battery powered smaller ones don't make too much of a noise. Do you put people all over your vital areas? You can't do that. You can't put a person on every inch of the border. So intelligence has to come in here. You got to have intelligence on the other side of what the other side is planning to do.
Okay.
So it's not just state actors or non-state actors across the border, but also within the police forces and the intelligence within the country, because this is a very potent weapon in the hands of terrorists who want to create mayhem within the country or just create a nuisance value. So the point is, one is the physical threat, the other one is the psychological threat. A drone aa gaya, kahan se aa gaya, from where it will come, we don't know. That is a social problem we need to tackle.
Okay, so there are, very different aspects on this particular issue, and as you pointed out, the challenges are twofold. One is detection, and then comes the neutralization part as well. But let me bring in Ajay here on the, both the gentlemen have clearly elaborated on the evolution and on the history part as well. But the way technology has, been developed over the years, we should not be surprised as to, we have these kind of weapons coming in, one of them being drone out here. And we've already spoken a number of times about future wars wherein unmanned aerial vehicles and drones will play a very important part.
See, Vishal, first we are in this program because a series of small drones have come across the border and dropped weapons into Indian Punjab. They are believed to have come in from Pakistan. These small drones have raised two little points, in my opinion. First, I'll recall the balloon incident which AVM Bahadur mentioned. We had to launch a Sukhoi to bring down that balloon. So imagine your formidable strike fighter has been airborne to bring down a balloon. Okay, now what do you do? At the moment, the Indian Air Force is testing out a system by which drones can be detected. Our radars and other things are at the moment programmed to pick out things which are of a particular size. Not very small size, but of a particular size. Probably an aircraft, a bigger armed drone which is much bigger, which is a wingspan of around 20-30 feet, or an aircraft or a helicopter. It has been programmed for that. A small drone like the one which came across from Pakistan into Indian Punjab were no more than 6 feet or 5 feet wide and very small with little radar signature. So it is imprudent to think that the existing systems can pick out those drones and bring them down. And okay, with what will you bring it down? Will you fire a S-400? Will you fire an Akash? Will you fire a Barak? What will you do? These are the questions which in everybody's mind in the security setup at the moment.
Detection and neutralization.
First is detection, the second is neutralization. What will you fire? These huge missiles can't be fired to bring down a small drone over a populated area. And the drone is flying only at 400 or 500 feet. It has just crossed the fence and come in and dropped a thing. Even if it drops, it is a very low-cost game for the adversary to play with India. As AVM Bahadur pointed out, the psychological impact of it. Now, how do you do it? How do you bring it down? That is the question. The Air Force is at the moment testing out a system by which it can be detected and also be brought down. Because a newer set of weapons will be needed to bring it down. You can't fire the huge missiles to bring it down. It is a small thing. You can't kill a fly with a sword. You need a small fly swatter, that kind of thing.
Okay.